You know that person you trust most in the world? The one you'd never imagine would betray you? Well, I thought the same thing. My name is Mary Claire. I'm 72 years old, and today I'm going to tell you a story I've kept locked in my heart for 50 years. A story that changed my life forever. A story that still makes my heart ache when I remember it, but one that taught me the true meaning of dignity. Before I begin, I want to ask you for a little favor. If you're enjoying this story, please like this video, subscribe to the Grandma's Diary channel to hear more life stories like this one, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing that people from all across America are following these stories. So go ahead, leave your city in the comments. I read every single one with so much love. All right, let's get started. I need to go back in time, way back to 1967. I was 24 years old, living in a small town in rural Kentucky called Cedar Grove, a town so small that everyone knew everyone. We didn't lock our doors, children played freely in the streets, and a man's word was worth more than any signed paper. I was married to John David Miller, a man the whole town respected, hardworking, serious, well-mannered. He worked for the railroad as an engineer, woke up at 5 a.m. every day except Sundays. He earned a good salary by the standards of those days. We weren't struggling, we weren't rich, but we never lacked for anything at home. We'd been married for 3 years. I married at 19, he was 26. The wedding was beautiful, you know, the kind every girl dreams of. A white dress that my mother and aunts sewed for months. The church was packed, the reception at my parents' house with a live band, plenty of food, everyone dancing until sunrise. I loved that man, truly loved him, from the depths of my soul. That first love, you know? That innocent, pure love of someone who had never loved before. When I looked at him, I saw my future. I saw the children we would have. I saw the old age we would spend together, holding hands on the front porch. And in 1967, I was pregnant with our first child. 7 months along, my belly already huge. I could barely tie my own shoes. I walked slowly, always with one hand on my back because of the weight. But I was happy, so very happy, waiting for that baby with such anticipation, with so much love. We lived in a simple little house, but it was ours. Just 3 rooms, living room, kitchen, and bedroom. The bathroom was outside, as was common back then. The house had a little backyard where I grew some vegetables, tomatoes, lettuce, green onions, and there was an apple tree that bore fruit every year. I adored that house. I had taken care of every corner with so much love. My routine was simple. I'd wake up early with John, make coffee for him, bread with butter, coffee with milk, sometimes a piece of cornbread. He'd leave for work at 6 a.m. I'd stay home taking care of the house, washing clothes in the wash tub, ironing with that heavy coal iron, cooking, cleaning, sewing. I also sewed for others, you know. I made clothes for people in town, dresses, shirts, pants. It was extra income that I kept in a little jar hidden in the kitchen cabinet. John didn't really know how much I was saving. That money was my secret, my independence. And there was a ritual in our house. Every Wednesday, John would wake up at 6 a.m. and say, "Honey, I'm going to the store to get the week's groceries." And I thought that was so wonderful. What a marvelous husband I had, right? A man who cared about doing the shopping, who lightened my workload, especially with me being pregnant with that huge belly. Every Wednesday, without fail, rain or shine. 6 a.m., he'd wake up, have a quick coffee, kiss my forehead and say, "I'll be right back, going to take care of the week's shopping." And he'd leave on his horse, a brown horse named Thunder. A beautiful, strong horse that he cared for with great attention. And you know what I did? I'd be happy thinking, my goodness, how lucky am I? What a good man, what a helpful husband. While he was away, I'd tidy the house humming, prepare lunch, wondering what he'd bring back. Would he bring meat? Would he find that fresh cheese I loved? Would he remember to buy soap for washing clothes? He'd take about 2 hours, sometimes a bit longer. And when he returned, he'd come with the bags. Rice, beans, a piece of meat, some vegetables, sugar, salt, oil, the basic things. I'd unpack the bags, put everything away in the cabinet, and life would go on. But you know when something seems strange, but you can't quite explain what. Well, that's the feeling I had. Not every day, not something that kept me awake at night. But sometimes I'd think, 2 hours to go grocery shopping. The store was downtown, about 20 minutes by horse from home. Round trip, 40 minutes, plus half an hour shopping, 1 hour and 10 minutes at most. Where did the other 50 minutes go? Once I asked. It was a Wednesday when he came back after 2 hours. I was finishing making lunch when he arrived. I unpacked the bags and said without thinking, "Wow, you took quite a while today, honey." He looked at me, smiled, and said, "The store was way too crowded, Mary. Huge line at the butcher's. Took almost an hour just to get served. Plus, I stopped to talk with Mr. Ray Johnson, the one who works with me on the railroad. We get to talking and don't notice time passing." And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? It was a perfect explanation, made complete sense. The store did get crowded sometimes, and John was sociable, talked to everyone. There was no reason to be suspicious. But there was something else that bothered me. Sometimes he'd come back with fewer things than I expected. Like, I'd asked him to buy 2 chickens so we could make chicken stew and save the other for the following week. He'd come back with just 1. I'd ask, "Honey, where's the other chicken?" And he'd answer, "Everything was too expensive today, Mary. I preferred to save money." Or, "There was only this one at the butcher's. Everything else was sold out." And I'd swallow it because it made sense too, right? Sometimes things did get expensive. Sometimes the stock ran out. I had no reason to doubt my husband. Besides, he was a good husband in every other way. Affectionate with me, helped me when I needed it, talked to me at the end of the day about his work, about things happening in town. He'd ask about the baby, put his hand on my belly to feel the kicks, said he could barely wait to meet our child, that he'd be the best father in the world. How could I suspect a man like that? A man who every Wednesday woke up early to go to the store and make my life easier. A man who worked hard, who came home tired, but always with a smile on his face. A man the whole town respected. I couldn't. I wouldn't. I simply loved and trusted. The Wednesdays became part of our routine, as natural as the sun rising in the morning. I'd even joke with the neighbors. I'd run into Mrs. Benedict, my next-door neighbor, and say, "Today's Wednesday, John's grocery day." And she'd laugh and say, "You're lucky, Mary Claire. My husband won't lift a finger to help me. You found yourself a good man." And I'd agree. I thought I was lucky indeed. Very lucky. The months went by, my belly grew. I was in my 7th month when that Wednesday happened that changed everything, that destroyed everything, that showed me I was living a lie. It was early October 1967, a blue sky day, strong sun, that typical spring heat in rural Kentucky. I'd woken up feeling strange, not well. My belly was heavy, heavier than normal. I felt some sharp pains, nothing too strong, but it bothered me. John woke up that Wednesday, as always, had coffee, kissed my forehead, and said, "Honey, I'm going to the store. Need anything special today?" I told him I was feeling kind of strange, a bit unwell. He asked if I wanted him to stay. I said no, that I didn't need him to, that it was just pregnancy discomfort that would pass. He insisted a bit, but I said everything was fine, and he left. 6 o'clock in the morning. I heard Thunder's hooves fading away down the dirt road. I stayed home, tried to do my normal tasks, but the discomfort got worse. The pains got stronger, more frequent. I started getting scared of losing the baby, scared something was wrong. At 7:30 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I went to Mrs. Benedict's house next door, knocked on the door. She opened it, saw my distressed face, and asked what was happening. I explained I was feeling strange pains, that I was worried about the baby, that I needed to go to the clinic. Mrs. Benedict didn't think twice, said, "Wait here. I'll get my brother-in-law's wagon. We'll take you right now." And she did. Came back 15 minutes later with a wagon pulled by a mule, helped me up. I sat on the wooden bench, holding my belly with both hands. The clinic was on the other side of town. To get there, we had to cross downtown and then take a little dirt road that bordered the creek. It was a path I knew well, had been down it 1,000 times. The wagon started moving slowly, that jolting of the wooden wheels hitting the stones on the road. I held on tight, praying quietly that the baby would be okay. Mrs. Benedict beside me, holding my hand, trying to calm me down. We passed through downtown, past the church, past the town square, past the store. The store where John should be, doing the shopping at that exact moment. I looked over when we passed. I looked for Thunder, looked for my husband, didn't see them. I thought, he must be inside shopping. The wagon continued. We took the little dirt road that went to the clinic, a somewhat isolated road. There were some little houses scattered about, some simple shacks. We were going slowly because of the holes in the road. And that's when I saw it. On the left side of the road, about 50 yards away, there was a shack. A simple wooden shack with a little yard in front, and tied to a tree beside the shack was Thunder, my husband's brown horse. Unmistakable. My heart stopped. I blinked again. Thought I was seeing things, that the pain, the desperation, the fear of losing the baby was making me see what wasn't there. But it was Thunder. I knew that horse like I knew the palm of my hand. The white spot on his forehead, the way he shook his head. It was him. My breath caught in my throat. I felt my whole body go cold, even with that hot sun beating on my face. My hands started trembling. My heart raced so hard it felt like it would burst out of my mouth. Mrs. Benedict hadn't seen. She was looking ahead, focused on the road. I grabbed her arm hard. She got startled, looked at me. I couldn't speak, just pointed. Pointed to the shack, to the horse. She looked, frowned, asked, "Isn't that horse John's?" I could only nod my head. Yes, it was John's. And in that split second, 1,000 thoughts raced through my head. Maybe the horse had run away. Maybe someone had stolen it. Maybe John was inside asking for help. Maybe there'd been an accident. Anything, any explanation except the one my heart was already screaming, but my head refused to accept. I looked at Mrs. Benedict and said, my voice coming out weak, trembling, "Stop the wagon, please." She hesitated, looked at me, looked at my belly, looked at the shack, said, "Mary Claire, you need to see the doctor. You're in pain. We need to—" I interrupted, grabbed her arm even tighter. "Stop the wagon, Benedict, please." She saw the anguish in my eyes, saw there was no point arguing, asked her brother-in-law to stop. The wagon stopped with a lurch. I was already getting down. My heavy, clumsy body, the huge belly hampering me. I almost fell. Mrs. Benedict caught me, tried to stop me. "Mary, you can't. You're pregnant. If something happens—" But I didn't listen, didn't want to listen. My feet were already stepping on the dirt, already walking toward that shack. Each step was agony, the belly weighing tons, my legs shaking, my heart beating so hard I thought I'd faint. Mrs. Benedict came after me, trying to hold me back, trying to make me return, but I continued. I needed to see, needed to know, even if it killed me inside. I walked those 50 yards that felt like 5 miles, the sun burning my skin, sweat running down my face, my hands shaking so much I could barely keep them steady. The shack had a tiny little window with a faded calico curtain halfway drawn. I approached slowly, each step harder than the last, my whole body screaming for me to go back, my mind begging for this not to be what I was thinking. I leaned against the wooden wall of the shack, felt the rough boards under my fingers, took a deep breath once, twice, trying to prepare myself for what I was about to see, but nothing in this world could have prepared me for that. I approached the window, looked through the gap between the curtain and the wood, and what I saw destroyed my soul. Inside, sitting at a simple wooden table, were 2 people, my husband and Lourdes. Lourdes Ferguson, a widow who lived in town. I knew her, everyone knew her. Her husband had died 2 years before in an accident at the sawmill. She'd been left alone, no children, living alone in that shack. People felt sorry for her. I felt sorry for her. And there she was, sitting across from my husband, both of them drinking coffee. I saw the steam rising from the cups, I saw the coffee pot in the center of the table. I saw a plate with bread. I saw the shopping bags leaning against the wall, the bags that should arrive at my house, the house he shared with me, with his wife, with his child who was about to be born. But the worst thing wasn't the bags. The worst thing was the scene, the intimacy, the way they were. This wasn't a quick visit, wasn't a courtesy conversation. It was something familiar, comfortable. He was at ease. She was at ease. I saw him laughing that way he laughed with me when we were alone at home. I saw him reaching his hand across the table. I saw him take her hand, squeeze it, caress it. My vision became blurred. I don't know if it was tears or if I was about to faint. I grabbed the wall to keep from falling. My legs gave way. I felt Mrs. Benedict holding me from behind. She had seen too. She had looked through the window. I heard her whispering, "Dear God in heaven, dear God in heaven." I kept looking, couldn't look away. It was like I was paralyzed, hypnotized by that horrible scene. I saw him getting up. I saw him going to where she was. I saw him leaning down. I saw him kissing her forehead the same way, the exact same way he kissed my forehead every morning before leaving. That was the last straw. My whole body started shaking uncontrollably. My legs gave out completely. I fell to my knees on the dirt ground. I didn't feel pain, didn't feel anything, just an immense emptiness, a black hole inside my chest that was sucking everything up, my happiness, my future, my life. Mrs. Benedict pulled me up, lifted me forcefully, whispered in my ear, "Let's get out of here, Mary Claire. Let's leave here now." She was desperate, afraid he might come out and see us, afraid of what could happen. I got up staggering. She dragged me back to the wagon, practically threw me up, told her brother-in-law to leave. Fast. The wagon started moving. The jolt shook me. I felt a sharp pain in my belly, but I didn't care. The physical pain was nothing compared to the pain that was tearing my heart apart. I looked back at that cursed shack. The tears finally started falling, thick, hot, wetting my face, my neck, my dress. Mrs. Benedict hugged me. I collapsed on her shoulder, started crying, sobbing, desperate crying of someone who had just lost everything. She was crying too, stroking my hair, repeating, "I know, my child, I know." The wagon continued, but I was no longer feeling the pains in my belly, was no longer worried about the baby. My mind was completely stuck on that image, that scene. Him and her together, while I, the legitimate wife, the mother of his child, was at home, waiting, trusting, loving. Everything made sense now. Everything. The 2 hours of absence every Wednesday, the shopping that sometimes came incomplete. The money he said was short. He was dividing it. He was taking things to her. He was supporting 2 households, living 2 lives. And I was the idiot, the fool, the dummy who believed everything, who thought it was beautiful that my husband went out to shop, who thanked God for having such a helpful man while he was being helpful to another, caring for another, loving another. How long? That question started hammering in my head. How long had this been going on? Since when? Since the beginning of our marriage? Before? Months? Years? I remembered the Wednesdays, tried to count how many Wednesdays I had lived believing that lie. How many times had he left home, given that kiss on my forehead, looked in my eyes, and lied shamelessly? The wagon stopped. I looked around. We weren't at the clinic. We were in front of Mrs. Benedict's house, in front of my house. She looked at me and said, "You need to rest, Mary Claire. Go in, lie down, calm down, think about the baby. We'll go to the doctor later." I got down from the wagon mechanically, dead inside. I entered my house, that little house I'd loved so much, which now seemed like a prison, a farce, a theater stage where I'd played the role of happy wife without knowing it was just a role. Mrs. Benedict helped me lie down in bed, took off my shoes, covered my legs with a sheet, brought a glass of water, held my hand, stayed there with me in silence. Because there were no words, there was nothing that could be said at that moment that would make any difference. I lay there, looking at the ceiling, tears rolling from the corners of my eyes, wetting the pillow. I thought about everything, about every moment of our marriage, about every smile, every kiss, every declaration of love. All lies, all false. Or I was just the second choice, the obligation. The one who was at home waiting while the other was the fun, the passion. How long did I stay there? I don't know. I lost track. Mrs. Benedict left at some point, said she'd be back, that if I needed anything, just call. I didn't even respond, just kept looking at that cracked ceiling. And then I heard the sound of horse hooves. He was coming back. It was almost 9 o'clock, 2 hours after he'd left. Normal time for him, the usual routine, as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't just spent 2 hours with another woman, touching another woman, laughing with another woman. I heard him entering, the sound of the door, the footsteps, his voice calling, "Mary, honey, I'm back." The same voice as always, the same cheerful, casual tone, like all the other Wednesdays. I heard him walking to the kitchen, unloading the bags, the sound of sacks being placed on the table, the noise of packages, him humming softly. Humming? As if nothing had happened. I stayed lying down, motionless. Couldn't move, couldn't get up, couldn't go there and face that man I didn't know, that stranger who slept in my bed, who put his hand on my belly, who called me honey. He entered the bedroom. I saw his silhouette in the doorway. "Mary, are you okay?" Concern in his voice. False concern, because if he really worried about me, he wouldn't be doing what he was doing. I turned my face to the wall, didn't answer. He approached, sat on the edge of the bed, put his hand on my back. That touch that used to calm me now burned me, made me want to scream, vomit. "Honey, what's wrong? Are you in pain? Is it the baby?" Was he really worried, or was he a very good actor? Probably both. I took a deep breath, tried to control my voice. I spoke without looking at him. "I'm just tired. Let me rest." The voice came out hoarse, weak, but firm enough. He stayed there for a few more seconds, his hand still on my back, then got up. "Okay, I'll make lunch then. You rest." And he left to make lunch. The perfect husband. The husband who went to the store and even made lunch for his pregnant wife while keeping a mistress on the other side of town, while dividing his time, his money, his heart. I stayed in bed the rest of the morning. Heard him in the kitchen, the sound of pots, the smell of food. At some point he came back, brought a plate, put it on the little table beside the bed, said I needed to eat for the baby. For his baby. The baby who would grow up thinking he had an honest father, a family man, a man of his word. He left for work after lunch, the afternoon shift at the railroad. Kissed my forehead, the same forehead he'd kissed hers hours before. Said he loved me. Said he'd be back at night. Said for me to rest. The door closed. I heard his footsteps fading away, heard the horse leaving, and it was only then, alone in that empty house, that I let everything out. I cried like I'd never cried in my life. Cried until I had no more tears, until my throat hurt, until my whole body shook with exhaustion. But in the middle of all that crying, in the middle of all that pain, something began to be born inside me. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something else. It was a cold, calculating clarity, an absolute certainty that I couldn't stay there, couldn't live in that lie, couldn't raise my child in that farce. I got up from bed, walked to the kitchen cabinet, opened the little door at the bottom, got the jar where I kept my savings, opened it, counted the money. I had enough. Enough for a bus ticket. Enough to start over far away, very far away. And at that moment, 7 months pregnant, with my heart broken into 1,000 pieces, I made the most difficult decision of my life. I was leaving. But I couldn't just run away. Not like that. Not at that moment. I needed to think, plan, do it right. Because if I made a mistake, if he noticed something, I wouldn't have a second chance. I spent the rest of that Wednesday in bed, pretending to be sick, pretending to be worried about the baby, and in a way, I really was. Every pain in my belly reminded me that I wasn't alone in that situation. There was a life inside me, an innocent life that completely depended on my decisions. John came back from work at 6 p.m., entered worried, came straight to the bedroom, asked how I was, if the pain had passed, if I'd eaten. I answered with monosyllables. Yes, no, better. He insisted we should go to the doctor. I said it wasn't necessary, that it had gotten better, that it was just pregnancy fatigue. He made dinner, brought it to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, watching me eat. Told me about his day at work, a locomotive that had broken down, a colleague who'd been absent. Every day, trivial things. As if his life was just that. As if there wasn't a huge secret rotting underneath all that normalcy. I ate slowly. Each forkful was an effort. The food had no taste. It felt like sand in my mouth, but I swallowed because I needed strength. Needed to be well to execute what I was planning in my head. That night, when we lay down, he hugged me from behind, as he always did. His arm wrapping around my waist, his hand on my belly, feeling the baby, our child moving. I went rigid, every fiber of my body rejecting that touch, but I didn't show it. I breathed deeply. I let him because I couldn't raise suspicions. He fell asleep in minutes, heavy, regular breathing, the sleep of someone who has nothing on their conscience. Or someone who was so used to lying that he could sleep peacefully anyway. I didn't sleep. I stayed all night with my eyes open, staring at the darkness, planning every detail, every step. I couldn't make a mistake. I had no margin for error. Thursday dawned. He woke up early, as always. 5:30, had coffee. I got up too. Made sure to get up, to seem better, more willing. He was happy to see me standing. Commented that I looked better. Kissed my forehead, left for work. As soon as he left, I started acting. I had 3 days. Just 3 days until the next Wednesday. Until the next time he'd leave for the store. That would be my chance. My only chance. First, I needed to be absolutely sure I had enough money. I went to the cabinet, got the jar, counted again, counted 3 times to be sure. I had $120. It was a good amount. I'd saved that over 2 years, sewing, saving penny by penny, thinking that money would be for the baby's layette, for the things we'd need. I never imagined I'd use it to run away. A bus ticket to Chicago cost $40. I'd asked once, months ago, when a cousin of mine had gone there. $40. I'd have $80 left. $80 to restart an entire life in an unknown city, 7 months pregnant, not knowing anyone. It seemed crazy. It was crazy. But staying there was greater madness. Second step, I needed to find out the bus schedules. There was a small bus station in town. 2 buses left for Chicago daily. One at 6 a.m., another at noon. I couldn't take the 6 o'clock one. Too early. Someone might see me, might tell him. It had to be the noon one. Wednesday. Noon, when he'd be busy. That Thursday, I walked to the bus station. Took almost 40 minutes, walking slowly because of my belly. I'd stop now and then to rest. Some people greeted me, asked how I was, how the baby was. I'd smile. Answer that everything was fine, that I was just taking a little walk, getting some air. I got to the bus station. It was a simple building, a waiting room with wooden benches, a ticket window. I went to the window, asked about schedules to Chicago. The guy looked at me strangely. "Ma'am, are you going to travel in that condition?" I said no, that it was for a cousin of mine, that she wanted to know the schedules. He believed me or pretended to believe. Confirmed it. Noon, every Wednesday and Saturday. I went back home, tired, with swollen feet, but satisfied. I had the information I needed. That night was like the previous one. He came home from work, we had dinner, talked about nothing, went to bed, he slept. I stayed awake, thinking, planning. Friday, the third day. I needed to decide what to take. I couldn't take a suitcase, it would draw attention. It had to be something small, discreet, a bag, a large purse, something that wouldn't raise suspicion if someone saw me on the street. I started separating things secretly when he was at work. 2 changes of clothes, underwear, a small towel, documents, my birth certificate, marriage certificate, ID. I kept everything in a corner of the closet, wrapped in a cloth where he wouldn't look. I got a cloth bag, one of those we used to go to the market. Put the things inside, kept it at the back of the closet, behind other things. He wouldn't see it, had no reason to look. That Friday night when we lay down, he was more affectionate than normal. Ran his hand through my hair, said he loved me, said he was anxious for the baby to be born, that he could barely wait to be a father, that we'd be so happy. Every word was a knife, going in, twisting, but I didn't show it. I smiled, said I was anxious too, that I was happy too. I lied. I lied as well as he lied every Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, the longest days of my life. I was on a tightrope. Anything out of the ordinary, any wrong word, any different look could give away what I was planning. I forced myself to seem normal. I cooked, cleaned the house, talked to the neighbors, went to church on Sunday, sat beside him in the church pew, prayed, asked forgiveness for planning to leave my husband, but also asked for strength. Strength to do what needed to be done. Monday, Tuesday. The anxiety was killing me. I could barely eat. My stomach churning, heart racing. Every time I thought about what I was about to do, every time I visualized the scene, me leaving home, walking to the bus station, buying the ticket, getting on that bus, going away forever. Tuesday night was the worst. I knew it was the last night, the last time I'd sleep in that bed, in that house, the last time I'd see that man, the father of my child, the man I'd loved, who I still loved in some twisted and painful way. He slept early, tired. I stayed awake, looking at him in the dark, trying to understand, trying to find some answer. How? How could he do it? How could he live 2 lives? How could he look in my eyes and lie so easily? I thought about waking him up, telling him I knew, throwing it in his face, screaming, crying, making a scene, but I didn't, because it wouldn't help. He'd deny it or apologize and promise he'd never do it again, cry, beg. And maybe I'd be weak enough to believe, to forgive, to stay. And I couldn't stay. Not after what I'd seen. Not after knowing that every Wednesday, while I was at home, waiting, trusting, he was in another woman's arms. Wednesday dawned, the day I'd marked. My heart was already racing from the moment I opened my eyes. 5:30 a.m. He woke up normal, like every day, went to shower, came back, got dressed. I got up too, went to make coffee, hands shaking, trying to control myself, trying to seem normal. We had coffee together. He ate bread with butter, drank coffee with milk, talked about the day, about work, about the weather. It was hot. It was going to be a hot day. I agreed, nodded my head, barely heard what he was saying. My head was on what was coming next. 6 o'clock. He got up, went to get his things, wallet, hat, came to where I was, in the kitchen, washing the cups, hugged me from behind, kissed my neck, spoke in my ear. I'm going to the store to do the shopping. Need anything special? The store. The same lie as always, told with such naturalness, such conviction, as if it were true. I turned to him, looked in his eyes, those brown eyes I'd loved so much that now made me nauseous. I smiled, the fakest smile I'd ever given in my life. I said, "No, honey, just the usual things." He smiled back, kissed my forehead. That damned kiss, that kiss he also gave to her. He said, "Okay, I'll be right back." And he left. I heard the door closing, heard his footsteps, heard the horse leaving. I stood still, listening to the sound of hooves fading away, getting farther and farther until it disappeared completely. And then, only then, did I start moving. I ran to the bedroom. Well, I didn't run. I couldn't run with that belly, but I moved as fast as I could. I got the bag I'd prepared, put in the last things, a hairbrush, a bar of soap, the photo from our wedding. Yes, I took that photo. I don't know why. Maybe to remember never to be so foolish again, so innocent, so blind. I got the money, counted it again. $120, everything I had in the world. I put it at the bottom of the bag, wrapped in a handkerchief. I looked around that house, those furniture pieces I'd chosen with so much care, those curtains I'd sewn myself, that baby layette hanging on the line, the tiny clothes I'd embroidered by hand, each stitch made with love, with expectation, with dreams of a future that would never exist. I left everything. Couldn't take it. Wouldn't need those things, those memories, that false life. I went to the table, got a paper, a pen, sat down, my hand trembling. I wrote just one short, direct line. Gone to find what you never truly brought home. I left the note on the kitchen table, where he'd see it when he returned, when he came back with the shopping bags, with his lie intact, thinking he'd fooled me once again, thinking I was here waiting. Fool. I took the bag, breathed deeply one last time, looked back at that door, that house, that life, and I left. I closed the door slowly, without making noise, as if I were just going out for a walk, to visit a neighbor, as if I were coming back. But I was never coming back. I started walking. The street was empty. It was 6:15 a.m. Most people were still sleeping or having coffee. Some men had already left for work, but the streets were quiet. I walked slowly, the heavy belly, swollen feet, bag in hand, each step taking me away from that house, from that man, from that lie. I passed by Mrs. Benedict's house. She was in the yard, hanging clothes, saw me, waved. I waved back. She shouted, "Good morning, Mary Claire. Where are you going so early?" I answered, "Just going to my mother's house. See you later." She waved again, went back to hanging clothes. I lied. My mother lived on the other side of town, opposite direction from where I was going. But Mrs. Benedict didn't know that or didn't notice. And even if she did, by the time she told someone, I'd be far away. I kept walking, passing the familiar houses, the bakery, the general store, the square, the church, places I'd known since childhood, that were part of my life, my history. And with each step, I silently said goodbye, without looking back. Because if I looked, maybe I'd give up, maybe I'd go back, and I couldn't go back. The bus station was about 20 minutes from home. Walking slowly, pregnant, took me almost 40. I arrived breathless, sweating, with back pain, feet throbbing. I looked at the clock on the wall. 7:30. I still had 4.5 hours until the bus left. 4.5 hours to wait, to hope that nobody would see me, that nobody would ask what I was doing there, that the news wouldn't reach him before noon. I sat on a bench in the corner, as far away as possible, back to the street, bag in my lap, waiting, counting the minutes. Those 4.5 hours were the longest of my life. Each minute seemed like an eternity. I was there sitting on that hard wooden bench, the bag pressed against my chest, praying for time to pass faster, praying that nobody I knew would show up, praying that he wouldn't discover before the time. The bus station gradually filled up, people arriving, people leaving. I kept my head down, looking at the floor, at my swollen feet inside those old shoes. Now and then, I'd lift my eyes just to see the clock. 7:45, 8 o'clock, 8:15. A woman sat beside me, an older lady. She looked at me, looked at my belly, asked, "Are you going to travel, dear, in that condition?" My heart almost stopped. I thought fast. I answered that I was going to visit an aunt in Chicago, that she was sick, that I needed to go. The lady shook her head disapprovingly, said it was very risky to travel pregnant like that I should have someone with me. I agreed, put my head down again. She didn't say anything else. Thank God. 8:30. 9 o'clock. More people arriving, movement increasing. I continued there motionless, trying to make myself invisible, trying not to draw attention. 9:30. I saw an acquaintance, the daughter of the store owner. She passed by the bus station, looked inside. Our eyes met for a split second. My blood froze. She waved. I waved back. Forced a smile. She kept walking. Didn't enter, didn't ask anything. My heart went back to beating slowly, heavily. 10 o'clock. 10:30. I was getting desperate. How much time was left? I looked at the clock again. 10:40 still. 1 hour and 20 minutes. How could time pass so slowly? I started thinking about him, about John. He must still be there at the shack with her, having coffee, laughing, touching her, without having the slightest idea of what was happening at home, of what I'd done, of the note waiting for him on the kitchen table. When would he come back? Probably around 9, as always. He'd enter the house, put the bags in the kitchen, call me. "Mary, honey." He'd notice the silence, find it strange. He'd look through the rooms. Empty bedroom, empty kitchen, empty yard. He'd go back to the kitchen, see the note. What would his reaction be? Would he be desperate? Run out looking for me? Would he go to my mother's house, to my friends' houses? Would he search the whole town? Or would he feel relief, think that now he was free, that he could be with her without having to lie, without having to hide? I don't know. And the truth is, I didn't want to know, didn't care anymore. I just wanted to leave, disappear, vanish from that town, from that life, from that man. 11 o'clock. 11:15. 11:30. The movement at the bus station was bigger now. People buying tickets, people waiting for buses, street vendors offering sandwiches, coffee, cake. I hadn't eaten anything since breakfast. My stomach was growling, but I couldn't eat. The anxiety had closed my throat. 11:40. I got up, took the bag, went to the ticket window. There were 3 people in line. I waited, legs shaking, heart racing. The woman in front of me took forever, asking about schedules, prices, destinations. I wanted to scream for her to hurry up, but I stayed quiet, waiting. Finally, it was my turn. The man at the window looked at me, the same one who'd served me on Thursday. He recognized me, frowned. "Ma'am, are you really going to travel? I thought you were asking for your cousin." I said yes, that an urgency had come up, that I needed to go. He shook his head but didn't argue, asked for the money. $40. I got the money from the bag, my hand shaking so much the coins almost fell. I counted, handed it over. He gave me the ticket, a thin, yellowish paper with the destination written by hand. Chicago. That word, that enormous city I only knew from hearing about, that was the size of 10 cities like ours, where I knew absolutely nobody. I clutched that paper like it was the most precious thing in the world, because it was my way out, my freedom, my chance to start over. 11:50. The bus arrived, big, red and white, noisy, blowing black smoke from the exhaust pipe. The driver got out, opened the luggage compartment, people started boarding. I stood still, watching, suddenly overcome by immense terror. Was I really doing this? Was I really leaving, abandoning everything? My house, my town, my family, everything I knew? 7 months pregnant, alone, with $80 in my pocket for a city where I didn't even know where to begin. It was madness, complete madness. But then I remembered the scene I'd seen of him with her, their hands touching, the kiss on her forehead, his smile, the Wednesdays, all those Wednesdays that were lies, and I knew I had no choice. Staying would be greater madness. I got on the bus slowly, holding the handrail, the huge belly making each step difficult. The driver helped me, held my arm. I thanked him. I showed the ticket. He pointed to a seat in the middle. I walked down the narrow aisle, people looking at me, looking at my belly, judging, probably thinking I was crazy, a pregnant woman traveling alone. I sat by the window, put the bag in my lap, leaned my head against the glass. The bus gradually filled, people entering, looking for their seats. An old man sat beside me, strong smell of cigarettes. He greeted me. I nodded, didn't say anything. Noon. The engine started. That loud noise, the whole bus shaking. The driver closed the door, shouted something I didn't understand. The bus started moving slowly at first, leaving the bus station, taking the main street, passing through downtown. I looked through the window, seeing everything, etching it in memory, because I knew I might never return. Never again see those streets, those houses, those people. We passed the church where I'd gotten married, the square where I'd played as a child, the general store where I bought fabrics to sew, the store. That damned store where he was never really on Wednesdays. We passed near my street, near my house. I couldn't see it from where I was, but I knew it was there, just a few blocks away, empty now, waiting for him to return and find out. The bus accelerated. We left the town. The landscape changed. Houses gave way to plantations, cornfields, coffee plantations, pastures with cows, rural Kentucky, green, beautiful, being left behind. I cried silently, tears flowing, wetting my face, dripping on my lap, wetting the bag. The man beside me pretended not to see, looked ahead at nothing, giving me privacy to suffer. I cried for everything I was leaving behind, for my family I hadn't even said goodbye to, for my mother who'd be left without understanding, for my brothers, for my friends, for Mrs. Benedict who'd been so good to me. I cried for the house I'd cared for with so much love, for the little plants in the yard, for the apple tree, for the curtains I'd sewn, for the baby's layette that had been left hanging on the line. I cried for who I'd been, for Mary Claire who was happy, who was innocent, who believed in love, that Mary Claire had died, had been buried in that damned shack by the creek when I saw what I saw. And I cried for him too, for the John I thought I knew, for the husband I loved, for the father of my child, who never really existed, who was just an illusion, a beautiful lie I'd believed. The bus continued for hours and hours, stopping in little towns along the way. People getting on, people getting off, the strong sun coming through the window, unbearable heat, me sweating, feeling sick, the heavy belly, the baby moving, kicking, as if feeling my distress. We stopped for lunch in a town I don't even know the name of. Everyone got off. I got off too. Went to the bathroom, a dirty, smelly bathroom with a door that wouldn't close properly. Peed, washed my face, looked in the mirror, didn't recognize myself. That woman looking back wasn't me. She had red, swollen eyes from crying so much. Pale face, tired, scared. I bought bread with ham, 10 cents, ate standing up, leaning against a wall, the dry bread sticking in my throat. But I forced myself, swallowed because I needed to, for the baby. We got back on the bus, continued the trip, afternoon falling, sun setting on the horizon, orange, red, beautiful. In any other situation, I would have found it beautiful, but at that moment, I felt nothing. Just an immense emptiness. It started getting dark. The bus lights came on, weak, yellowish, people dozing, heads swaying with the movement. I couldn't sleep. Kept looking through the window at the darkness outside, thinking where I was going, what I was going to do. I had no plan, had nothing. Just $80 and a 7-month belly. It must have been close to 9 p.m. when I saw the lights. Many lights, thousands of lights lighting up the horizon. Chicago, the enormous, frightening city. The bus entered the city. Huge streets, tall buildings, cars everywhere, people, so much noise, so much light, so many people. I'd never seen anything like it. My little rural town would fit in one block of that city. I was terrified, completely terrified. How was I going to survive there? How? The bus stopped. Greyhound Terminal, the driver announced. Everyone getting up, taking their things, getting off. I stayed seated, paralyzed, unable to move. The man beside me had already left. I was alone on the seat. The driver shouted, "Last stop! Everyone off!" I got up, took my bag, got off, stepped on that ground, Chicago ground. I looked around, people running, people shouting, buses arriving, buses leaving, deafening noise, bright lights, my whole body shaking. I didn't know where to go, didn't know what to do. I stood there in the middle of that crowd, a pregnant woman alone, lost, scared. I sat on a bench, I had nowhere else to go. It was almost 10 p.m., the terminal packed. Me sitting there alone, completely alone. I saw families reuniting, hugs, kisses, people picking up relatives, friends. Everyone had someone, except me. The night went by. I stayed there, people decreasing. Midnight, 1 a.m., the terminal emptied, only a few left. Homeless people, people sleeping on benches, and me. 2 a.m. A security guard approached, asked if I was okay, if I was waiting for someone. I said yes, that my husband was coming to pick me up, that he was late. The guard looked at me suspiciously but didn't say anything, continued his rounds. 3 a.m. I was exhausted, dead tired, but couldn't sleep. I was afraid someone would steal my bag, my money, which was all I had. 4 a.m. It started getting light, that weak clarity, the terminal starting to move again, people arriving to catch the first buses of the day. I continued there, not knowing what to do, where to go, how to survive. And that's when she appeared. A woman, about 50 years old, short, chubby, graying hair tied in a bun. She was setting up a stall, selling fruits, apples, bananas, oranges. She looked at me, looked again, approached, stopped in front of me, said, "Girl, are you okay? I've been seeing you sitting there all night." I looked at her and I don't know why. Maybe from exhaustion, from desperation, I started crying right there in front of that stranger. I broke down. She sat beside me, hugged me, didn't ask anything, just stayed there holding me while I cried. When I managed to stop, she asked, "You ran away from home, didn't you?" I nodded my head. She sighed. "Do you have a place to stay?" I shook my head no. "Family here?" "No." "Money?" "Little." She was quiet for a while, thinking. Then she said, "I have a very small room in the back of my house. I use it to store things, but there's an old little bed. You can stay there until you get settled, until the baby's born. Then we'll see." I looked at her, at that stranger, that woman who didn't know me from anywhere, who owed me nothing, but who was offering me a roof, a place, hope. I cried again, but this time from relief. I thanked her through sobs, thanked her so much. She smiled, a tired smile. She said, "My name is Celia. You can call me Cece." And there, in that huge terminal in Chicago, I found my salvation. Miss Cece finished setting up her little stall there at the terminal, arranged the fruits, put up the little signs with prices, stayed until about 10 a.m. selling. I stayed there nearby, sitting on the bench, watching, still half not believing I'd found someone willing to help me in that enormous and scary city. When she closed the stall, put everything away in a big wooden box, she called me, said, "Come on, girl. You need to rest, eat something proper." I got my bag, followed her. We took a bus. Crowded bus, packed, people pushing, me with that huge belly being squeezed. Miss Cece protected me as she could, holding my arm, making space. We got off in a neighborhood she said was called Uptown. Dirt streets, simple houses, shacks, poor people like me. Her house was tiny, 3 rooms, but it was hers. She lived alone. Her husband had died years ago. The children had married, gone away. She was left alone, working, selling fruit to survive. She took me to the back. There was a separate little room, really very small, about 9 by 9 feet. A tiny window, an old bed, a broken closet, musty smell, but it had a roof, 4 walls, and at that moment, that was a palace to me. She gave me a clean sheet, a pillow, a towel, said I could use the house bathroom, that I could cook if I needed to make myself at home. I asked how much the rent was, how much she wanted. She shook her head, said she didn't want anything, that when I got work, made some money, we'd see. But for now, I should stay quiet, rest, take care of that baby. I cried again. It seemed like that's all I did, cry. She hugged me, said I was very young, that life would get better, that I'd see. I was 24 years old. She thought I was young. I felt old and tired, like I'd lived 100 years. I stayed in that little room, slept all day, all night. Woke up the next day, still tired, but a bit better. Miss Cece knocked on the door, brought coffee, bread with butter, sat on the edge of the bed, talked with me, asked my story, where I was from, what had happened. I told everything, the husband, the betrayal, the escape. She listened in silence, nodding her head. At the end, she said, "You did right, girl. You did absolutely right. A man who cheats is no good, doesn't deserve a wife, doesn't deserve a family." I stayed in the little room for 3 weeks, resting, trying to gather strength, trying to prepare myself for what was coming. Miss Cece didn't charge me anything, gave me food, treated me like a daughter. I helped with what I could, cleaned the house, washed clothes, cooked. It was the least I could do, but I knew I couldn't depend on her forever. I needed to work, earn my own money, especially because the baby would be born in less than 2 months. And babies need things, diapers, clothes, food. I started looking for work, but who would hire a pregnant woman at 8 months? Nobody. I knocked on so many doors, stores, restaurants, family houses looking for a maid. They all dismissed me as soon as they saw my belly. It was Miss Cece who had the idea. She said, "Why don't you sell something with me at the terminal? There are people who sell flowers, sell well, especially at the cemetery gate, people buying to take to the dead." Cemetery, flowers. It wasn't what I dreamed for my life, but it was what I had. She lent me money, $20 to buy the first flowers, roses, carnations, daisies. I went to the flower market at dawn, bought what I could, made some simple bouquets, tied them with string, and went to the cemetery. Graceland Cemetery was about 20 minutes walking from Miss Cece's house. I arrived early, 6 a.m. There were already other people selling flowers, but there was space. I sat on the sidewalk, put the flowers in front of me, waited. People came to visit the graves, Memorial Day, death anniversaries, or just because they wanted to see relatives. Many bought flowers from me, from the other vendors. I sold cheap, cheaper than the others, because I needed to sell, needed that money. At the end of the day, I'd sold almost everything, made $12 profit, $12 that seemed like a fortune. I went home exhausted, feet swollen, back aching, but happy, because I'd done it. I'd worked, I'd earned my own money. I did this every day, woke up early, bought flowers, went to the cemetery, sold, came back. Gradually, I built a clientele, people who always bought from me, who knew I was pregnant, alone, fighting, and had pity or admiration, I don't know, but they bought. I saved money. Little, but I saved. Kept it in an old biscuit tin, hidden under the bed, for when the baby was born, for the things I'd need. I was 8.5 months along when it happened. It was a December afternoon, hot, very hot. I was at the cemetery selling, feeling some light pains in my back. Thought it was fatigue. Continued there, but the pains got stronger, more frequent. I realized it wasn't fatigue. It was the baby. Coming 2 weeks early, but coming. I gathered the remaining flowers, put them in the bag, started walking slowly, stopping when the pain came, holding on to the wall, breathing deeply, people looking at me, asking if I was okay. I said yes, that I was going home, but I wasn't okay. I couldn't make it home. The pain got too strong, unbearable. I sat on the sidewalk in the middle of the street, couldn't walk anymore. People gathered around me. Someone called an ambulance or fire truck. I don't remember exactly. I just remember the pain, the immense pain tearing my body apart. They took me to a hospital, public hospital, big, crowded, noisy. Put me on a stretcher, took me to a room, took off my clothes, put me in a faded green gown, nurses coming and going, doctor examining, saying things I didn't understand. The pain was so much I thought I was going to die. I screamed, cried, grabbed the sheets, begged please for someone to make the pain stop, but nobody could. I had to go through it. Alone, with nobody holding my hand, without my mother, without a husband, alone. It lasted hours, hours of agony, pain, desperation, until finally, I heard the cry. That sharp, piercing little cry. My son, my baby was born. A nurse brought him wrapped in a white cloth, placed him in my arms. I looked at that tiny little face, red, wrinkled, eyes closed, little mouth moving. And despite everything, despite all the pain, all the suffering, all the tragedy, I smiled. I smiled like I hadn't smiled in months. He was perfect. 7 pounds, 20 inches, healthy, strong, crying with good lungs. The doctor said everything was fine, that he was born well, that I'd been lucky. Lucky? Was that luck? I don't know. But looking at that baby, at that miracle, I thought yes, that despite everything, I'd been lucky to have him. I named him Peter Michael, because I'd always liked that name, and because I wanted him to be strong, a warrior, like St. Michael. I stayed 3 days in the hospital in a ward with 10 other women, all with their babies. Some had visitors, husbands, mothers-in-law, bringing flowers, gifts, food. I had nobody, just Peter, and he was enough. Miss Cece appeared on the second day, brought some little clothes she'd bought, used but clean, a blanket, cloth diapers. She held Peter in her arms, looked at him, smiled, said, "He's beautiful, Mary Claire, very beautiful. He's going to be a good man, you'll see." We went back to the little room. Me, Peter, our new life. Everything was very difficult, very tiring. Newborn babies cry a lot, nurse all the time, don't sleep right. And I was alone, doing everything alone. But I did it, managed somehow. I breastfed, changed him, rocked him, slept when he slept, which was little, very little. When Peter was 1 month old, I went back to work. I had to. The money I'd saved was running out. I took him with me to the cemetery. Left him in a wooden crate lined with a blanket right beside me while I sold flowers. He'd sleep or stay awake looking at the sky. People felt even more sorry. Woman alone with baby selling flowers, bought more, gave tips, sometimes gave little clothes, diapers, food. Life went on, difficult, heavy, but it went on. Peter grew up, beautiful, healthy, smart. At 1 year he was crawling. At 2, he was walking, talking, calling mama. I kept selling flowers for years, many years. When Peter was 5, I got better work at a grocery store, selling vegetables, fixed hours, fixed salary. I stopped with the flowers, with the cemetery. With the money I earned, saving penny by penny, I managed to pay for Peter to study. Private school, simple, but private. He was intelligent, very intelligent, got good grades. Teachers liked him. I encouraged, pushed, demanded, always said, "Study, my son, study hard. It's the only way you'll have a better life, different from mine." And he studied, really studied, passed the college entrance exam, engineering at a public university. I cried when he told me, cried with pride, happiness, relief, because I knew he'd make it. He'd have a good, dignified life. He graduated, got a job, good job, married, gave me grandchildren. Today he's a civil engineer, works for a big company, earns well, has his own house, car, family. I retired, sold lunchboxes for years after the grocery store, saved money, bought a small diner, worked there until I couldn't anymore, sold it. Today I live on retirement, which is little, but enough to survive. I never married again, never wanted to, never trusted a man that way again. Had some short relationships, nothing serious, nothing that made me want to share my life again. And John, what happened to him? For a long time, I didn't know. didn't want to know. I'd cut all contact with my town, with my family, disappeared completely. About 15 years ago, when I was in my 50s, a cousin of mine found me, discovered where I lived, came to visit. We talked, she told me about things back home, about the town, about people, and she told me about him. She said that when I ran away, when he came home that Wednesday and found the note, he went completely crazy. Ran through the town looking for me. Went to my mother's house, my brothers, my friends. Nobody knew anything. I hadn't told anyone. He went to the police station, filed a missing person report. The police looked but didn't find me because I didn't want to be found. He ended it with Lourdes, the woman from the shack, sent her away. They say he screamed at her, blamed her, said he'd lost everything because of her. He spent years looking for me, alone, drinking, working, but empty. The guilt eating him from inside. When Peter was born, someone must have told him, I don't know who, but he found out he had a son, that it was a boy, that he was alive, that I was alive. He tried to find me in Chicago, but Chicago is immense. He had no last name, no address, nothing. He didn't find me. At 40, he had a heart attack, massive heart attack, at work. Dropped dead in front of his colleagues. At the funeral, Lourdes appeared, crying, saying he'd never gotten over it, that he talked about me until the end, that he regretted every day, that he wanted to have done things differently. My cousin told me this, expecting me to feel something. Pity, maybe, remorse, regret. But you know what I felt? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. That man was a stranger to me. It had been so long ago, another life, another Mary Claire. I only felt relief. Relief because he wouldn't look for me anymore, wouldn't try to appear anymore, wouldn't disturb the life I'd built from zero, alone, with my son. My cousin asked if I regretted running away, raising Peter alone, denying him his father. I looked at her firmly, surely, and said, I chose my dignity. I chose my son. And if I could go back, I'd do everything again. Everything. Because I learned that sometimes the greatest madness isn't running away. It's staying, it's accepting crumbs, it's living a lie. And that's it. That's what I wanted to tell you, to the women who are listening to me, to those who are going through something similar, who are suffering, who are being betrayed, deceived, humiliated. The pain passes. You don't believe it now, but it passes. The humiliation passes, the suffering passes, but self-respect, dignity that we carry forever. And it's worth more than any man, than any marriage, than any beautiful lie. I survived alone, pregnant, with nothing, in an enormous city, and I didn't just survive, I won. I raised my son, gave him education, gave him love, gave him an example. I showed that a woman doesn't need a man to be strong, to win. Today, I'm 72 years old. I have a wonderful son. I have grandchildren. I have my simple little life, my retirement, my peace. And when I look back at everything I went through, I don't feel anger. I don't feel hate. I feel pride. Pride in myself, in the woman I became, in the courage I had. So here's my message to you who are suffering, who are thinking of giving up, who think you won't make it. You will. You will make it because you're stronger than you imagine, braver than you think, and you deserve it. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be respected. You deserve to live with dignity. And if necessary, if you need to start over from zero, alone, do it. Don't be afraid, because in the end, at the end of everything, you'll look back and you'll know it was worth it. Every tear, every pain, every sacrifice. It was worth it. It was very much worth it. Before I finish my story, I want to ask something of you who are following me. If this story touched your heart, if you were moved, if somehow this made sense to you, please like this video, subscribe to the Grandma's Diary channel to hear more real stories like this one, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been through something similar? Do you know someone who needed to hear this story? Share it with those who need to know it's possible to start over, that it's possible to survive, that it's possible to win.